I'm going to open up for ABR today, which is Monday, April 15th, which is tax day. You want to do roll call?
Chair Zink.
Here.
Kirk Radine.
Here.
Tip Kun. Scott Hopkins. Okay, he'll be in later. Gary Moselle.
Here.
Stephanie Poole.
Here.
And Howard will be in later also.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to open up public comment. Is there anyone from the public wishing to address the board for an item that is not on today's agenda? Seeing none, I will close public comment and move to item B, which is the approval of the minutes for ABR of Tuesday, April 2nd. Do I have a first and a second for this? Gary, first for Gary and second by Kirk. On the minutes, anything before item 1? Item 1, anything on that? Moving to item 2.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
on item 2, the first item under the motion, just cross out the last phrase there, to match existing semicolon roof panels are to be confirmed. It's just unnecessary. So just period after panels.
Oh.
You're on item 1?
Item 2, which is the cell phone thing at 1224
Okay.
Coast Village Circle. And it's item 1 for the motion.
Okay.
To match existing, period. That sounds reasonable. Okay, anything else? Okay, moving on to item 3. Okay, and moving on to item 4.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
The first item under the motion, this is a little bit confusing, and I think whoever made that motion was trying to say too much in one sentence, which was me. But so the way I would change this is to put a period after walkways.
Great.
So, yeah. I'll just reread that first sentence. Reduce the project by 1 unit to allow for more landscaping and adequate pedestrian designated walkways, period. And then trash enclosures, appropriate location and bin sizes, and private outdoor areas are not to be located in the front yard, period. That's how that should read. That's all I've got.
Kathy, you get that? Perfect. Anything else for item 4? And then item 5 was just a discussion. So that is all. So with that, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of the minutes as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Abstain, item 1.
Abstention on item 1. Okay, moving on to the consent calendar for April 8th. Oh, we need a first and a second for that.
So moved.
First by Kirk,
Second?
second by Stephanie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For consent last week, we had item A, 3891 State Street, was approved as submitted. That was a review after final. Item B, 521 North Lacumba Road, was approved with conditions. Item C, 1919 Cliff Drive, got a project design approval. Item D, 131 Anacapa Street, was continued 1 week to the full board, so that's on our meeting agenda today. Consent last week was reviewed by Kirk Radine.
Alrighty. So any other discussion on the consent? If not, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to April 15th, which is today. We have someone who wants to first and second the motion. First by Kirk, second by Gary.
Okay, for consent calendar today, we had item A, 109 Bath Street, was continued to the staff hearing officer. Item B, 120 South Hope Avenue, got final approval of building G and was continued indefinitely for building D. Item C, 1919 Cliff Drive, got final approval with conditions. Consent today was reviewed by Kirk Radine and also Stephanie Poole.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. So any other discussion on that? If not, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to item D, which is announcements, requests by application by applicants. Are there any announcements?
Howard Wittosh will be absent today.
Okay.
And also tomorrow, Tuesday, is the council hearing for the ABR appeal, or appealing the ABR approval of Miradero Drive.
And I'll be attending.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I'm glad we appointed you. Moving on to subcommittee reports. I don't believe there are any. So we're on to item 1, which is a discussion item, the Urban Forest Management Plan Project by city staff.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mandy Burgess. Oh, here we go. 1 second. Okay. Hi, thanks for having me today. My name is Mandy Burgess with the Parks and Recreation Department. Here to present to you today a status and progress of the Urban Forest Management Plan project. Jill Zachary is the project manager for this. She's the assistant director of Parks and Recreation. And the Urban Forest Management Plan is a long-range plan that will preserve and protect the urban forests, looking about a 30 to 50-year time frame. And for the purpose of the plan, we're defining the urban forest as all the trees within the city's boundaries, public and private. So the street trees, the park trees in the front and backyards, all will constitute the urban forest as we describe it in the Urban Forest Management Plan. The project began back in July. Staff have moved forward with several key work efforts. We've developed a technical advisory committee. This is an 8-member advisory committee. We've got some folks from Planning Commission, Street Tree Advisory Committee, Southern California Edison, to name a few. We've conducted a tree canopy assessment, held a few community meetings, and distributed a tree survey. We have those results. We'll talk about those today. And we've conducted a baseline assessment that really gathered all the information, policies and plans that have tree-related issues in them, and as well as done a case study on what other cities have done with their urban forest management plans. We've also developed some key issues and some draft objectives and key actions. And we've been presenting our key issues and our draft objectives to various boards and commissions throughout the month of April. This board will actually conclude that process. And our purpose here today is really to present the information, but also try and hear back from you about any key issues you see, tree-related issues you see, in your work with the board. Before I begin, the Technical Advisory Committee and staff developed a vision statement and a mission statement. This really gathered our direction for the development and implementation of the Urban Forest Management Plan. And up on the screen is the vision statement. It says, Santa Barbara's urban forest is healthy and diverse and contributes to the community's economic, environmental, and aesthetic vitality. It is valued and cared for by the city and its citizens and reflects our horticultural heritage. And the mission statement, preserve, protect, and enhance our trees, promote the benefits of trees, and foster a healthy and diverse urban forest. And that really reflects what the forestry program is doing today. As I mentioned, there was a tree canopy assessment done. This was one of our initial efforts, and it really is a baseline information about the trees in Santa Barbara. And this tool is a good tool to use for a few reasons. It's a cost-effective way to look at a large area and a lot of trees to really assess your tree population. You can compare this information not only within the city, but to other cities and kind of gauge, where you might stand. And then finally, it's also trackable over time. If the city ever wanted to perform a subsequent inventory, we could understand how we are changing in terms of tree canopy, growing tree canopy, losing tree canopy. This was done with an intern and using GIS software and tracking it using aerial imagery and GIS software. And so Santa Barbara has about a 25% canopy cover today. And We have some numbers up here. Your staff report that was provided to you also has a few more details in there. But basically what you find is, and what you might expect, our residential areas typically have large canopy cover. Our industrial, commercial areas, lower canopy cover, and even amongst some of those categories within the residential areas, lower west side, lower east side, lower canopy cover, San Marcan, San Roque, greater canopy cover. Same with our parks, beaches, no surprise there, not so much canopy cover, harsh environment, can't support a lot of canopy and large trees. Open space parks and some of our neighborhood parks have some of the greatest canopy cover. We also, in late January, had 2 community meetings. It was the same community meeting held twice. And this was the department's opportunity to talk about the forestry program, its tree preservation policies, but also, and as well, the plan, the urban forest management plan, in its development stages, but also gather information from the community about tree-related concerns. And we presented a few questions that helped guide the discussion. Those are up here today. How do you envision the urban forest in 30 to 50 years? What tree-related issues are important to you? What priorities the community feels the city should have? And what residents can do to contribute to the preservation of trees in the urban forest. There was about 51 attendees to these 2 community meetings. And at this time, we also distributed a tree survey. So up here, we list a few of the concerns that we heard kind of loudest, although there was a range of topics discussed. I think this captures the majority of the sentiments, and one of those being increased city tree maintenance. Folks would like to also see a larger tree canopy, particularly among our street trees. Diversity and that horticultural heritage component was also spoken of, and a large component being partnerships and outreach to the community. As I mentioned, we distributed a tree survey. It had those same questions on there, as well as an opportunity to, write and really spill out those concerns that folks have. Again, some of the most important tree issues include aesthetics, maintenance, tree health and protection, and historic and specimen species. Before I go any further, I want to mention we received about 25 surveys back from just the community meetings. We wanted to expand our responses, so we used SurveyMonkey, an online survey tool, and we're able to get 520 surveys back from the community. We used e-subscribers as our main way to get the word out there to the community. Put in the water bill and online as well. So back to the tree survey results. Some of the top city priorities include tree health and aesthetics, public safety, tree planting, tree maintenance, and tree protection. Residents felt they could contribute in 3 main ways: maintaining and caring for trees on their property, reporting cases, and understanding city policies. We also wanted to know if they have ever contacted the city about a tree-related issue. About 50% had. And we wanted to understand the familiarity with the tree preservation policies. 44% felt they were unfamiliar with the policies, 47% somewhat familiar, and 9% very familiar. Again, this was e-subscribers primarily, so there was kind of no shock that they had most likely contacted the city about a tree-related issue. We were a little bit more surprised, given the pool of surveyors, that their familiarity with the tree preservation policies was quite low. And that speaks to, again, this need for the outreach component. So concurrent with our outreach efforts and our community meetings, we're developing some key issues that, again, we'd like to present today, but also hear back from you. These were developed by various departments within the city, the technical advisory committee, and pulling from our survey, our meetings, and boards and commissions. And again, our goal today is to make sure that we've done a comprehensive look at the issues that are out there. So the issues are really categorized into 5 main topics: tree resource management, and this is really going to be diversity, tree age, maintenance, planting needs, infrastructure constraints, and those are going to be city trees as separate from private trees. Policy and planning, that's more the need to update the street tree management plan or develop a park tree management plan. Program funding, no surprise there. How are we going to strategize the funding needs for everything we want to do? City organization, there's pretty much always a better way to communicate and coordinate our efforts. And community involvement, again, this large outreach component that we know needs to happen. The draft objectives that, again, you have in your staff report, also developed with city staff, technical advisory committee. Again, these are very draft, and it's our way of kind of showing you how our key issues might start to line up into some goals and actions that will be in the plan. And they really provide some focus and direction for the plan. The objectives and key actions are, again, in these same categories that we mentioned above. Tree resources, our objectives are really to maintain, sustain, and maximize the urban forest. City organization, the funding, communication, coordination, policy and planning, integrating some of the other goals found in other plans, general plan, climate action plan, pedestrian plan. How are we going to use this plan to maybe implement some of their goals? And then the community involvement aspect. So we've provided some of our example objectives up here. Maintain trees for safety, health, and longevity. Provide sustainable tree canopy. Maximize canopy cover. Optimize species age and diversity. And an action you might find is, again, updating the street tree master plan, developing the urban forest, or developing the park tree master plan as an action that we would take to achieve some of these objectives. For city organization, increasing funding and interdepartmental communication. Some of the actions we've talked about with these include board and commission trainings, staff trainings on the policies that are related to tree-related matters. Let's see. And again, identifying external funding for items that may not work out in the plan. Policy and planning, integrating the urban forest management plan with the general plan, climate action plan, some of these plans I mentioned before, and ensuring tree preservation ordinances support urban forest management goals. We will be going to council at the beginning of the new year, 2014, and ask that they adopt this plan by resolution. Finally, community involvement. Some of the actions we've talked about, developing an adopt-a-block, adopt-a-tree program, of course, literature, any workshops that we can hold to get the word out. The next steps will be going to, you conclude our board and commission reporting. We'll continue to develop and refine these draft objectives and goals throughout May. We'll go back to the community in June with those goals and objectives. And then again, we'll go to City Council for a status report in July. And that really concludes my portion. Would like to hear from you if you hopefully had a chance to look at the key issues. If you feel that there's anything that was missed, please let us know. If you feel that there's anything that you feel is important and want to elevate, in priority, we'd like to hear that too. So, thank you.
Does anybody have any questions or topics of discussion for the city staff?
I just have one question. The canopy study didn't include identifying species, right? Or did it?
No, it did not. This was strictly aerial imagery and GIS software, and it's literally drawing polygons around either single tree canopy or continuous tree canopy.
Okay. The reason I asked is because I noticed one of the goals, I think it's listed under one of the goals, was to optimize species variety. If you don't know the species, how does the study assist in that?
So for our street trees, and most of our parks, there was in 2008 a species inventory done. It wasn't only species, it was a tree inventory. You can find that on our maps, on the city's maps program. And it's a layer. You can go and click on that and look at that. So all these street trees, all of our developed parks, most of our open space parks, with some exceptions, Rattlesnake Canyon, you're not really going out there and categorizing every tree. It's a large area. So we really focus somewhere like Scoville Park and the main picnic areas. So that has been done.
That's helpful.
Yeah.
Discussions by anybody else? Well, thank you very, very much for your time.
Thank you.
Great. We'll move on to item 2, which is 531 East Coda Street. This project we've heard before, so I won't read through the item. Hello. Just follow these. You're looking for final?
Yes.
All right.
So I'll go ahead and read the motion from the last review. It was continued 2 weeks full board with the following comments. Number 1 has a number of items under landscaping. Greater compliance with ABR landscape guidelines 2.21, 2.23, 2.25, and 2.31 is needed. B, a landscape architect is recommended but not required. C, consider substantial additional planter areas along the west and south building facades adjacent to parking lot spaces and adding new planting areas wherever possible. D, consider taller plantings on all of the elevations, especially the south elevation along Coda Street. E, study providing trees or other taller vegetation in existing or new parking lot planters. F, ensure the sidewalk width along Coda Street meets the city width requirements in regards to the new planter area and existing tree planter areas. Consider additional sidewalk material or tree grill to widen the pedestrian path. G, applicant shall work with the city arborist regarding type, species, and size of the street trees. Applicant to add a new street tree. And H, an irrigation plan is required. There's some other comments having to do with architecture. Maybe we should start with the landscape plan.
Let's just go through landscaping first, yeah.
Well, just to give you, my name is Carlos Cross. I'm a principal at Cross Design Studio. Just to give you an update on that, we did hire a landscape architect and definitely bringing together a more comprehensive landscape plan.
Okay.
This morning we met with Jamie. We got a courtesy review from Santa Barbara Single Family Design Review Board, which is in the memorandum. And
All right.
that's the update.
Can I have you announce your name in the microphone, just for the record?
I'm Kaylee Brown with Grace Design Associates, and we're landscape design builders or designers and contractors.
Great. And you have 3 sets there?
Yes,
Okay.
2 in color.
I'll follow those here. Sure. If you don't mind, we'll go through the minutes and you just tell me how you addressed them.
Perfect.
I have to reiterate all this.
is compliance with ABR landscape guidelines.
So we followed the compliance worksheet and hit as many of the points, as we could here that related to this project. 100% of it is water, low water use, and no turf is used anywhere. No overhead, so we didn't have any of the issues with overhead sprinkling systems. So I think we hit all the compliance we could.
Okay. And B was the landscape architect. That's you.
Yes.
C is consider substantial additional planter areas along the west and south building facades, adjacent to parking lot spaces, and wherever possible.
Yes. So the original landscape proposal had this original planter, and just two small ones here. So we've extended it to continue farther along here. This area in here wasn't planted, so we've added a tree canopy and more planting there. And this planter here curved and came into the building here and has been extended all the way to the street. And then we added two substantial planters in the back along the alleyway to really soften that facade as well.
And the tree types are?
These are Gondis flexuosa, Jarvis Bay, which are purple foliage to really give an accent and a softening to this. This is a large 20-foot wall to the jiu-jitsu building adjacent to our property, and so those will soften that structure. And then in here, it was Jamie's recommendation that we had some tree canopy coming in, so we added Melaleuca armillaris to really soften the parking lot area. And yeah, along here is we added smoke tree, Gutinus cargaria, to continue the purple foliage kind of theme coming in, and to really add some more drama to the back alley area and some more height.
Okay.
And then along this area, she also asked that we add some more height to the planter because it's a 20-foot facade, and it's a 3-foot planter, and these are Acacia melanoptifera, the zigzag wattles, and they'll get between 12 and 15 feet tall. So they'll really, and they're nice and airy. They'll really soften that tall facade there. And they kind of will frame Carl's vertical architectural feature, this wooden vertical structure, and kind of accent it without competing with it. So.
Okay, well that addresses D, which was looking for taller plantings along Coda Street.
Yeah.
And other elevations. E is study providing trees or taller vegetation in existing or new parking lot planters. I think you addressed that. F, ensure the sidewalk width along Coda Street meets city requirements.
Yes, and that had just ended up being a drafting error right here where they, where this tree well came up to where there are existing steps, but we're being asked to close off that entry. It had originally only showed 3 feet, but we went back and measured it, and it's actually 6.
Okay.
So we're okay there.
And then we also asked you to consider adding a street tree, an additional street tree.
Yeah, and Carl spoke with Tim with the urban forestry, and he has said that because that tree well is so small and so close to the utilities, he doesn't recommend putting a tree there. Yeah. So we've left that.
Then follow up on that. Are you going to be filling this in so it's all concrete?
We'll add in the ground covers that we're recommending for all of the tree wells, which is, I believe I had Senecio, let's see, ground cover including Senecio mandorliscae, Echeveria, and Burkata, which is another small, low succulent, and then Cislaria autumnalis, which is a pretty agreeable grass for those kind of planters.
It's got an irrigation plan as well.
Yeah.
I don't think we need to look at it, just say it's done.
It's done.
Actually, we do.
You want to look at it?
I did look at it, and
He's a plumber.
I'm curious. You're planning on hand watering everything? Is that
Not everything, only the beds that we aren't able to access because, so the water main's right here and the only hose bib existing is currently right here. So everything that we can sleeve for as we do the improvements, we are. So all along here and all of these beds will have drip irrigation, as you can see in the Zone 3 note. But the Zone 1s will be hand watered, but we're adding 2 additional hose bibs, one on either side of the building, so that we can easily reach them with a hose because it would take trenching through the whole parking lot to get there.
Can I ask staff if that's acceptable?
Yes.
Sure. So, good afternoon, Heather White here. I just also wanted to mention that obviously this is now outdated because they've responded to the comments in this memo. So what you're seeing is their response to Jamie Pierce's comments this morning. I would probably recommend that these plans would come back to Jamie one more time, though, just if you would feel more comfortable with her double checking the species choices that they've picked to address the comments.
Okay.
So anyways, that could be done next Monday morning, or so forth. But as far as the irrigation, Jamie did comment on the irrigation this morning, and she was okay with the idea of, as long as those hose bibs are installed on the east and west elevations. Of course, it's not ideal, and she acknowledged that, but she felt that it could be workable as long as those 2 additional hose bibs are installed.
Okay.
But I would also recommend that she take a final look at the landscape, the irrigation plan as well.
All right.
Yeah.
Are you planning on redoing the parking lot at all?
No.
Okay.
Are they plants that once they're established will no longer need to be hand watered?
Yes. Yeah. The goal is to have everything not need irrigation post-establishment. We usually say that's about 3 years, and the trees maybe a little bit longer, just so they really get some deep rooting. But
Okay.
So the first of the,
I don't think we need to do these things. Let's double check that they address those. We did everything that was on the minutes?
yeah, we covered the minutes.
Okay, so what Heather just said is that they've already updated their plan since this was written.
Oh, is that what you said? I'm sorry, I misunderstood. Okay.
So, can you go through maybe a little bit more slowly the height plants? Because I think that one's of great interest, and she had mentioned the possibility of a spaliard near the loading dock area or Brisbane box type.
yeah.
And maybe I think that would be helpful for them to know the mature plant heights along the
Yeah.
couple elevations.
Yeah, and I actually have the spec sheets on those plants if you'd like. But this is this cotinus, the smoke tree, is between 8 and 12 feet tall. I didn't choose an espalier because of the maintenance of it and the training that goes into it to have a nice shape. I just chose something that naturally has a nice shape and has the architectural continuity with the purple foliage going on in the other beds. And I can show you the spec sheet if you'd like on that. Then this plant, Jamie had asked that with the 3-foot planter we hit, and then the plant we hit about a 15-foot height, which is where.
Can I go to the elevation real fast so we can look at that at the same time?
And I think the plant example photos are helpful for this group too, if you're able to.
So this is the acacia that will be along this side here. This is the cotinus.
And we need to have those on the TV camera now that we're here.
Okay. And I'm sorry, the Melaleuca doesn't have a picture on it. But
So this zigzag acacia is the one that gets 15 feet tall?
yes.
And it's the one that's in the raised planter? And
No, it gets 8 to 12 feet tall, but it will hit 15 feet because it is in a 3-foot high planter. And so
Oh,
the
12
total
plus
height
3.
will be, because the total height of the building is 20 feet, and so we measured down where there was an architectural detail. So she just wanted it to hit about that line there.
Okay. And this smoke tree is the one that's on the side by the loading dock?
Yes.
And it's the one that was 8 to 10? Actually, it says
12 to 16. Sorry, I had the heights of
12
those
to
two
16.
backwards.
And there were 2 here and 1 over here?
Yes.
Okay.
And then other medium height and then lower, so it has good hierarchy back there as well.
Ready? We'll keep these with the file if you don't mind. He said he's good about that.
And then this Melaleuca doesn't have a picture with it, but it has the specs on it.
Okay.
Under 30 feet.
This is new already.
Any vines?
No vines. We wanted to, we really contemplated putting in vines, but generally the vines take too much more water than we wanted, or they were going to need training, like supplemental training up the wall, with wiring, other than Boston ivy, which requires too much water. So we decided that a tree would be a more substantial screening and softening than a vine that would need constant training up the wall, because it's a stuccoed wall. It may not cling by itself.
Let's move on to the rest of the architectural comments, and then we'll ask you more questions later. For the minutes?
Okay, number 2, more information is required on architectural details such as the formed concrete wall and any other new architectural features.
So where do we have that addressed?
If we look on the elevation,
Which was sheet 4, we were there.
Including the bond beam at the corner of the handicap ramp entry.
so let's start with the bond beam, the corner of the bond beam. There was a concern about just that detailing up there, and so I pulled that fin wall out straight with the building instead of notching back. So
So we have a side elevation of that?
yes, we have a side elevation
Right here?
right there. So it straightens out. So structurally, that opening is very doable with a channel beam. And if you look at detail right here, it shows the channel and the bond beam in there. So that is taken care of. There's also some other supplemental structural information in regards to that canopy as well.
Okay.
As far as the wall goes, on the west side where the board form concrete is, there's just some random board form pattern in there that I will definitely make more decisions on site, but at least that gives a general feel for exactly what's going on within there.
Great. All right. What's next?
There was an additional planter right here.
Is this raised?
That is raised, yes.
And this additional planter that's raised is new?
Correct.
Okay.
Sorry, does it match something or is it a different material?
It is the wood material, and it also incorporates a bench in there. Previously, there were just holes in the concrete that was allowed in there, and raised that to at least kind of.
So is that this bench?
Correct.
And then that's this area. So now I'm getting you. On the landscape plan, there's a big blank section. Is this a wooden bench?
No, this is empty. This is it right here.
Oh, this is the bench.
Yes. So it's raised planter, bench, raised planter, and then sidewalk.
Sidewalk. This is planting flush with the sidewalk.
Correct.
And then this zone here,
Is blank.
and why was that?
Just because, just looking at the facade and just wanted a little bit more, didn't want the whole thing to read.
You got the windows there too.
Yeah, I like the the way that this form is like split off and then it comes to this form and then having another form below without having the whole thing continuous.
Okay. What's next on the map?
Just one question. Where does this detail occur?
That detail occurs right here.
Oh, okay.
Are we in the question and
We're actually not in the question and answer part. But we peppered
All right.
the landscape cal already.
Number 3, the existing building colors are unacceptable.
So let's go
Study
there.
using warmer colors, more in keeping with Haley-Milpas.
Okay. I took definitely some options and just looked across the street and just with all the murals going on in Ortega Park and with the pool and some of the other blues that were going on in that mural to incorporate a blue trim material, but went deeper on the warmer tones of the kind of taupes with the colors. So I gave a couple options on that so we could discuss that.
Can you briefly say where these are going and pick one elevation?
Sure.
Oh, you have a colored elevation. Even better.
It's not true to the color, but at least gives some kind of tonality and guiding with that. So the one thing that was changed was on the east elevation, instead of having the plywood and having wood on top of wood, I painted the concrete, the trim color, and put the wood slats in there to give it more color on this side here. And using that same kind of application in the front with the blue, in the back concrete with the wood kind of lattice work in between that as well.
So the blue is behind.
The blue is behind, yes.
Okay.
And then this roll-up door could be painted entirely blue as well.
This color or this color, whichever.
I would
Okay.
say that one.
And then this field here with Benjamin Ward more calm.
Yes. It could be.
Which one of these?
It's this
Okay.
one.
There it says calm. Okay. Great. And this is a raw wood or it had a stain to it, a finish?
That is a raw wood. That is white oak.
Proposing leaving it raw?
Yes.
You wouldn't seal it?
Oh, seal it, yes, but not stain it.
Okay.
Your last wood was
The
Yellow
yellow
cedar.
Alaskan cedar. And Howard mentioned to just keep it more local, and I totally agree with that.
That was
so.
one person's opinion.
But this is good.
All
Yes.
right. Next on the list.
Your study selected wood material.
All right. You went with white oak. Next. Anything else?
That's it.
Great. Anything else you want to add for your presentation? All right. I will open up public comment. Is there anyone from the public wishing to address the board on this project? Seeing none, I will ask staff if there are any other public comments, any staff comments. Then I'll return it back to the board for questions of the applicant. And Tip, you weren't here last week. Did you have a chance to review the video?
No, but I have.
Okay. If you have some comments, we'll like to hear them, but probably refrain from voting if you haven't reviewed the previous minutes, if you don't know how we got to where we are today. Questions for the applicant?
Gary, I think you had some.
Actually, minor comments. I'm going to add comments. They're
Okay.
not really questions.
Okay, let's just go straight to comments then.
No, I have some questions, and perhaps it just goes to your feeling us out for the wood species prior to changing all your drawings, but your drawings still say cedar instead of white oak on your details.
Okay.
So that's what I just wanted to clarify.
Well,
The bench details.
was the white oak going to be solid, or is it a plywood veneer?
It's solid.
It's solid. Okay.
Unlike the sample.
Correct.
That's what I was going to say, because yellow cedar, when it's solid, it's fine, but a plywood...
I'm sorry, that's the only thing I could dig up at the time.
Okay.
And your cedar, the white oak is not going to be treated? That could.
It will be sealed, it will not be stained.
Okay.
So it will be natural.
And it won't be painted anywhere, will it?
No.
I was looking on your colored rendering, and it looked like some of the slats were painted, but maybe that was just a color rendering. Oh, okay.
Background blue behind it. Right? And all
Yes, yes. There is, the surface behind the slats is colored.
Oh, maybe that was what I was seeing. Where's
I'm not sure where it is.
this? Appears to be colored.
Isn't that open air?
Well,
That is
there-
open air. Yeah, that is that in the background.
Doesn't
It's supposed to be, yeah.
They're supposed to be these colors.
Exactly, yes.
Okay.
Oh, so you're saying that this is supposed to be shaded this color?
Correct.
All right, we're being really particular today. But we're being good, too.
I have a quick question. I haven't seen the details. Is this 2x material or 4x material for the bench? Or
That is
2x6.
2x material.
2x material?
According to the detail, 2 by 6.
Okay.
2 by 8.
2 by 8 cedar board
And this-
saying, okay.
2 by 8. Except it's white oak.
Yeah, we'll make that a note in a minute. Okay. I had a question having to say, which of the paint colors is your favorite, or you really don't care, or because it's calm was listed here, you're more in favor of this palette
Yes.
A?
Yes.
Okay.
I have one more question.
Go for it.
The bench could be located in the area where there's sidewalk and no planting proposed. Is there a reason why it's in a location where there's planting, the bench? As opposed to planting, more planting?
As far as the more planting, we like the bench idea just because
I like the
it's
bench
just-
idea.
It gives a little bit of humane area, and it's right near that west entry where a lot of drops off will occur,
Right.
and just kind of make that facade a little bit more friendlier.
So it kind of feels like it's not a back door. You know, it feels like it has a presence as an entry back there.
I agree that it's an appropriate location for a bench. But if it were in the location where there's sidewalk and no planting proposed, then more planting could go in here.
I guess I want to ask all the board members, just so that they're on, if the board members are okay with this piece of concrete remaining, understanding that this is a raised existing planter of 3 feet, and we're infilling where the stairs were, and then we're cutting out this concrete, and then we're going to be building a raised bench per those, or a raised planter per those details. And this is what you would like to do for a variety of reasons, as long as the board says, yeah, that looks cool, keep moving forward, or if the board has concerns, want that to be discussed, as long as people understand that. Any other?
I don't have any questions.
Okay.
Question now or comment?
Anything you want.
Just wouldn't perhaps, maybe looking at in-ground planter instead of raised planter or just flat concrete.
In which location?
Right here?
No, the spot rather than that spot.
Oh, this spot.
Exists.
We have a strip here from this point to this point that is an in-ground.
Well, that's raised, right? That's a wood planter.
This part is on grade, and then this part is raised.
So let me show you an elevation now.
That elevation is hard to tell because we don't have the plants drawn onto it.
So this is the part that's new planter that's raised. This is the new bench. Then there's going to be a little part, let's say this much, that's going to be on grade, and then there's going to be this much existing concrete.
So it seems like you have everything. You have concrete planter, block planter, you have wood planter, you have in-ground planter, you have concrete.
We're trying to break up that. It's a very long facade along the Coda side, so it kind of gives that variety of the human scale kind of.
Well, my comment is that if you had newspaper stands in here or you had an actual park bench, then the sidewalk makes sense. But to have nothing there except for concrete is kind of ridiculous. It makes us look foolish that why did we force you to put this much planter in? Why didn't we force you to make the whole thing planter? So either go back and make it all concrete like you had the first time, or make it all planter. But this is kind of silly unless you have like freestanding benches that you're going to bolt into the concrete. Then that makes sense to keep that as concrete. But that's just from the perspective of driving by, going and trying to analyze why you made these decisions. It looks a little bit odd.
Sure, I have a different take on it. I appreciate the designer's perspective on it, to not simply do something uniform and linear on a building that's already long and linear, and trying to get a play with different heights and different treatments of that sidewalk space. So I'm okay with a 10-foot section of concrete on a 67, 80-foot long facade. That's my view on it.
Cool. Go for it.
I would comment that I don't mind that concrete section either, but think that the bench seating area should be relocated there, and so as to provide more planting in that raised bed area.
Gary, you want to jump in?
I do. So I agree with the last comment that the bench should be out of the planter area and moved into the concrete area. Then it makes sense to me. Also, kind of takes away from the planter area when you put a bench in the middle of it.
Elevation, what are you looking for?
Looking for those details. I think they're on 9.
9.
I just noticed, I want to talk a little bit about the landscaping plan. One of the things that I'm really not as okay with as staff and everybody else is the amount of hand watering that's going to be done on a commercial property. If you have hand watering, what you have is future dead plants. And there are opportunities, for instance, you're running a drain line to this proposed planter that you're building, but you're not running irrigation to it. Doesn't make any sense to me. You're running a drain line to a planter, you should be running a water line to that planter as well, and it should have irrigation. Irrigation
irrigating that one, I believe.
Yes, so we're
So irrigation-wise, we have this one that's dead, and we have one hose bib right here, and we're adding new hose bib at this location. We're adding a new hose bib at this location. I feel like a hose bib should be added here, and a hose bib should be added there. That way they can at least put, for the first 3 years, they can at least put a timer on them, and we could get some established planning. So I think with the amount of work that's happening on the interior building, You're doing all new interior inside here, and there's a lot of work. There's new bathrooms going in here. There's new hose bibs already being proposed. I think that we should pop those out in locations that are going to be useful. And I also think that this should be irrigated as well.
Yeah, that will.
Okay.
All right, and that's how I see this landscaping being done. And I can understand here, here I can go with this being hand watered, but I also would prefer that it would be irrigated.
Did you want to add something?
So that will actually be irrigated. All of this along here will be drip irrigated. Our one concern with getting the irrigation, especially to this bed and this bed, this one has a huge existing ramp, so to sleeve it for this, just this one bed would be quite a bit of extra work for the infrastructure. And if we pull it from the building, it's possible, but each time we pull it from the building, we have to have another backflow and all of that. So
I just thought because you're adding a new hose bib right here,
yeah,
it's really simple to do that.
well, it's very simple to bring it from here to here because we're redoing this ramp here, but this is remaining the same as it is. And so there's a ramp that comes up above grade, and these beds are, we would have to core through, which I don't even know if that's possible. Run it inside the building?
Yeah, you're doing an interior remodel, so is there a reason why you can't run that overhead in the building? I mean, I would imagine that that's where that hose bib's coming from anyways, from this bathroom back here.
Over the roll-up door.
And then
Back
Yes.
down.
It would actually be in the ceiling space.
Okay.
Yes,
Well,
this
fi-
front. Well, the thought with that was there's the administrative bar that really is kind of having a drop ceiling, and so running the plumbing over that to here, I think is doable. These spaces back here go all the way up into the dance studio, so bringing that through that space might take a little something and be explored.
Well, I think it's something that should be explored because
Okay.
in my experience, landscaping that doesn't get watered dies.
Thank you. Comments from anybody else?
Sure. I want to start with that I am really looking forward to this remodel. I think it's going to be a great addition to the neighborhood. I like the new color scheme. I'm liking the bold as well because it's kind of tempered behind the wood slats. The blue on the garage door, maybe a little over the top there, but I could see it. It's in the alley. I can go either way. I'm with Kurt on this. I think a break is nice. Landscaping would be nice. I think it'll be successful either way. The hand watering, that's an issue. It's 50-50 whether those plants will die. And why take the chance? That's all I have.
You want to add anything, Tim?
To what, the landscaping or to the building?
Your choice.
Previous comments or
We're here. They've already received preliminary approval, so they're just here for final, and they're just here for some small tweaks.
well, I think the wood is nice touch to the building.
Is it on mute? On the top, along the top? Did you turn it on this morning?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
So wood is nice. I'm a little concerned about the using the cedar for the outside because I know it's a great for the outside and it's a durable wood, but I'm concerned about the maintenance issues down the line. And most of the time, which I use a wood called Ipe or something like that. It's much harder, it's less maintenance, and it doesn't warp. I'm not sure. Have you looked into that at all?
Yes, I think cost-wise,
It's costly.
it's getting up there. Yes.
Yeah, it's very.
And also, I really wanted to stick with more of a light colored wood instead of looking at it so dark with the dark bars kind of running from.
And secondly, on the detail one on sheet 9.03.
Okay.
How do you feel about adding, maybe look at the option of adding a little recess in the ceiling in the plaster to control the water so it doesn't stay in the plaster.
It's a valid point for your eye, but we don't need really go there. We'll let him figure that out, or you can talk after hours with him.
Okay.
Aesthetically, broad brush.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
He was talking about the water water coming here, and sometimes people put a score joint right here. It's a valid concern, but we don't really need to be grading people's drawings. It's just,
That's it.
I'm glad Gary mentioned about the irrigation, and the only reason why is because when Sears parking lot redid all of their islands, they put irrigation, and they saw cut the whole parking lot and got irrigation in there. So it is an added expense, but it's not impossible, and it ensures more plants that will survive. So is your project ready to go into the building department tomorrow if we gave you final?
I would say not tomorrow, but next week, yes.
Okay, so then what if we just made comments to go to consent and to clean up these things, and then you can go in after you finish consent? Because the project's not ready for final with a couple of these landscaping things. So we can give the building final, or we can just give the whole thing final at consent next week. If that's
How about building final, and we could do the landscaping?
okay. So the applicant would like to get building final with comments for landscaping. Does staff have anything to add?
Mr. Chair, I think you have the minutes in front of you. I can't find them here, but I don't believe they have a project design approval yet. Last time it was just continued 2 weeks, so you can
We
make a
didn't give-
project design approval and
Oh.
final today.
Yeah, right. We didn't give it last week, which was our last time, which I think was a mistake, but
Okay.
nonetheless, that's where we are.
You want to make a motion, or should I craft something and have look for a volunteer to take ownership of it?
Yeah, why don't you do that?
Okay. This we appreciate the project and the direction it's going and the way it's going to be cleaning up an abandoned building. It's going to be brightening the neighborhood. We appreciate the effort. This is for project design approval and final for the architecture and the landscaping plan to return to consent next week with the following comments. The color palette will be palette A as on the color board, which is the calm and the more intense blue color. The wood that's going to be used in the project will be solid white oak, and it will be sealed and not stained. We ask that the applicant relocate the bench detail that's in the planter area to the location where there is currently a sidewalk against the building, and continue the landscaping where the bench used to be in the planter. We ask that the applicant provide additional irrigation to the 3 locations on the project, and however you address that is up to you, whether it's internal or external. And that we ask the applicant to add a note stating that there'll be ground cover added to the abandoned tree well, or if the city would like that to be filled in with concrete, then to fill it in per city standards. And that's all the comments that I have noted. Is someone willing to first that motion and take ownership of it?
Chair, did you want to have the specific species double checked by the consent reviewer?
One sec. We need someone to second that motion.
I'll second it.
Second by Scott. It's going to go to consent next Monday. So you want us to add to the motion the consent reviewer to verify the species?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So at consent next week, the consent reviewer for landscaping will verify the species that you selected.
Okay.
And that's okay with the first and the second. Anything else to add? If not, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I'll announce a 10-day appeal period, and you're good to go in the building department, and landscape next week at consent.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm abstaining.
Oh, I forgot to ask that question. And one abstention. And can you Xerox this so it's a flat version for the city file? Like a color Xerox?
Sure. Photograph. Yeah.
Photograph.
Yeah.
Digital photograph. That works.
Nice job, by the way. Really nice.
So will Jamie be at consent, or I should set up to?
Work it out with them, because it might be at the single-family design board consent, because that's where the landscape reviewer is.
Okay, thanks.
So moving on to the next item.
Or yours to take with you, I think.
Moving on to the next item, which is item 3. And we are right on time, 4:05. It is 131 Anacapa Street.
Hey, Carl? I'd like to take two with you.
And we are going to pause for 2 minutes while we look for the applicant. Rarely are we on time, so they don't show up on time. April 15th. We are on item 3, which is 131 Anacapa Street. This was referred to the full board from the consent on April 8th. So I would like to have the applicant introduce himself and then ask Kurt to explain the project of what we're looking at.
Hi, I'm Clay Arell with AB Design Studio, architect for the project.
Do we have 3 sets or just 1? 2. We have 2. Okay.
I think we have 2.
Okay.
Well, are we ready?
Yes.
Okay. It seems like a minor change, but it's fairly prominent visually, and it's something that was.
Is this it?
Yes.
That's a good statement.
It's as you can see on the Anacapa entrance side, off of the parking lot. Main entrance to the restaurant is here, and this is maybe a 15-foot roof that's sloping way back. Side view is. Oops.
Yeah, if we can go to a site plan too to get our bearings.
Yeah. So here's the side view. It's long, maybe more than 15, might be 18. And so they're having an issue structurally in getting a supply to the restaurant area for ducting. So they're proposing to put it on the roof all the way across, and then drops inside the restaurant at 4 or 5 places along there. This duct right here, if we go back to the other drawing, is along this corner of the building, adjacent to this high wall. Just feeds another section of the building on the inside there. That's the change. Clay can give a much more
Clay, do you have,
reason
do you have a set
for
of
it. But
mechanicals that are requiring this?
I did not bring the mechanicals, but I can probably explain most of it. But no, I don't have the mechanicals.
So this is the ductwork here and this one. Is this trellis still happening?
Yeah.
This trellis isn't higher than the building?
Mm-mm.
Okay. Do you want to add anything?
Sure.
You're up.
I'd love to. So this is probably a good place to start. So as most of you have seen this project in the past, I know you guys weren't here yet, but it's under construction. It's quite an industrial sort of aesthetic that's going on here, and we're in construction. This is what was originally, I think I've got a photo of that. Here, I'll use the photo instead. When we first started working on this building, this was some of the ductwork that was originally on there, and this was there as well. I thought I had another good picture of that. Here's another one from the front. We've really approached this project as sort of an adaptive reuse and keeping the old brick and kind of trying to assimilate some new thinking into an old site. As we've gotten into the restaurant design, if I can look at the site plan for a second, Paul. The restaurant's going right in here, and the back of the house stretches back into this corner. We're sitting roughly about 85 feet at this location from the public way. And the hood for the restaurant is going here, and what we've actually prepared for you is a section through this so that you can kind of see what we're dealing with. So this is a section more or less through here, this portion of the building, showing the condition that we have, which is a much taller area of the building here, which spans this, and then the low shed roof that is the cover of the old Bay Cafe. And all of our equipment, we've taken the equipment, all the equipment off the roof here, we've relocated to this roof back here. So that's all sitting behind this parapet that you can see here, and all the equipment, the heavy, bulky items are back in here. What we've been dealing with is, as we're laying out the hood of this restaurant, and the restaurant's already permitted, so we're going through some of this stuff, is that the hood that we're using and the depth of the hood is being kept at a minimum of 6'8". The duct serving the hood can't get underneath this structural beam here, which runs all along this line and runs all the way down the building here. And so we've been trying to figure out how to get this stuff underneath, and it's just there isn't enough head clearance to get the duct with the duct liner and the insulation and the fire rating and all those things that need to go in there for the hood. So one concept was to have that run along here, and this would actually be tighter to the building. It'd be right in that location, and the equipment then could feed into this high space and come out the front parapet here, the front of that parapet, and then run tight down along there just to supply the makeup air for the hood. It's fairly tucked away up against the building. We would likely do the same with this here, wherein we would drop down through the roof with the HVAC unit sitting roughly right around where my finger is. Drop down, come out the glass block clear story, and then run vertically in this direction or horizontally in that direction. And this is all being necessitated by sizes of ducts and airflow and size of hood and makeup air and all those sorts of things. And so we're trying to find a solution. This is our most promising solution in terms of it being easy to use, easy to install, the most direct route for all the ducting. And it also, in our minds, falls in line with the sort of Cannery Row industrial nature of the property that we inherited. And we know that the guidelines, the ABR guidelines state that all rooftop equipment should be screened. It should make an effort to have them screened. I think Tony had that document out when we were at consent. And this is probably an instance where we're screening the equipment proper, which I think is a good solution. I wouldn't have been in favor of putting any equipment on this roof, just as the architect for the project. But in this instance, what we want to do is just run a duct along the edge here and drop it in, which gives us a lot of flexibility and a lot of control over what we're trying to do. I think it would be, personally, it would be an aesthetic addition to the property. I don't think it would be a detriment. If the equipment was out here, I would say that would be a problem.
Quick question. Do you have a photograph that shows this neighboring building? And when you say that this duct is going to be tight against the building, it's not. I didn't see it on either of these three.
I thought I had.
And how tight is tight?
That one's blocked.
Is there a fire requirement that you need to be 3 feet away or some crazy thing like that?
It's really hard to see. I could probably draw it. Okay, there you go. So what you're looking at here, this is this tall building adjacent, this white wall. Okay?
What's the semicircle?
This white wall is this. Okay? And the semicircle is they have some fenestrations in here that have been closed off that are right on the property line. This wall, this is the parapet here.
That's the existing parapet.
That's the existing parapet, which is this parapet here. This is the shed roof that comes down, which would be here. You'll see right along here, where behind that package unit, is a brick parapet that has a little step in it. That runs right along this face, and this duct will be right up against it because the hood is directly underneath that wall. So that parapet wall here would be right along here. It's just not rendered in this site plan.
Okay.
And it's about, if I had to draw it, it's about a 16-inch wall, so it's probably like right around there. And then the duct would be in this location, right above the hood.
Great, that's a great picture. I want to ask him, is there anything else for your presentation? We'll open up public comment, and then we'll come back to the board for questions.
So when I was here before, sorry, I've got a bunch of copies of these, but one of the things that Kirk and I were talking about was, maybe looking at it in 3D. And so, we've looked at this in terms of what you would see. We're painting this building a dark color. That's already been approved. We've got kind of this dark steel, raw steel out in front of the building. That would be the horizontal stripe of the duct running across the roof. We'd still get to see the glass block feature of the building. This is, as you get close, the pitch of the roof and the perspective, that completely disappears as you get towards the front door of the restaurant, which is here. But we've shown it kind of in a black, like a painted black duct, or as a shiny, more shiny duct, non-painted, raw finish. And these were just to kind of look at it from a couple different angles to see. So here's the different, so there's that versus that. And I think that these are the same view, just different finish.
Actually, do it this way. Great. So these finishes line those. Okay. Anything else for your presentation?
I don't think so.
Okay. I will open up public comment. Is there anyone from the public wishing to address the board on this item? Seeing none, I'll ask staff, is there anything to add? Okay. It's back to the board for questions of the applicant, and then we'll move to comments after questions.
I have a couple of questions.
You're up.
Good. Can we go to that? So, Clay,
Which one? Site plan?
so Clay, what you're proposing here is you're showing one duct. Is this for heating and air?
Yep.
Because here you explain it's exhaust, right?
Yep. Great. This
So
is the heating and this is the HVAC system for the dining room of the restaurant, which sits here. This one would be primarily makeup air supply for the hood.
Okay.
The hood exhaust is over here.
So this is makeup air for the hood,
Yep.
and then this is. So what about our return? Is there
It's
a
right
return?
Here. It's right here.
So your return, you're just gonna have your return at
We're
one
going to
spot.
have we want to do a return air grill in the ceiling that'll pop up and back in the building, and it's shown that little nub right there.
So we're just going to have our return here and there. I've noticed that this is graduated. So is there going to be ducts coming down?
Yeah, we want to just bottom right from the underneath side, just feed it down and blow it into the space.
Was there discussions about expanding it to a wider duct with a lower profile?
We still can't
For
make
this horizontal run right there, was there
On top of the
discussions? Was there discussions of dropping the profile of it and increasing the width of it?
We haven't explored that. We're really looking at this right now, just coming in with the round duct. But if we needed to do that, it's possible.
So what's the maximum size of the diameter for the round duct?
I believe it's 24 here, and then it gets down. It starts going down. I think probably 18, 14, 10, something like that.
Okay. And then is this going to be aluminum coated insulated, or is it just going to be interior insulated and sheet metal on the outside? How was the insulation plan on that?
Well, it kind of depends on what we end up here with. I'd like to keep it exposed and just insulate it on the interior. But if we need to paint it and do sheet metal, and do that, then we can do that too.
And so you were proposing a galvanized metal, not stainless or anything like that?
Right.
Fiberglass. Okay.
What do you mean by insulated on the interior?
A double wall.
No, ducts can be interior insulated. They have a product that will go inside the duct, or they can be insulated on the exterior. And
I don't want to wrap the exterior with insulation.
Definitely not.
Do it on the inside.
I mean, there's different ways of doing it.
Yeah.
That's why the question.
Okay.
I have a couple of questions.
Stephanie?
one quickly. I see. I think I see on this existing photograph the smaller pipe on the roof. Is that fire sprinklering?
These are electrical conduits.
Oh, it's
You mean
conduit?
this stuff here?
Yeah, is that fire sprinkling?
Oh, that's all gone now.
Okay, so
all
it's not
been-
coming back. It's fire.
No.
Okay.
The roof, we've actually re-roofed this already. It's already done. This is coming out of the restaurant tenant needing to figure out a solution.
Okay, and I think I probably already know the answer to this question, but have you considered raising or installing a parapet along here, or along here to hide that ductwork
I haven't.
at that exterior wall?
I don't think we've really considered it because I think it would add a weird element to that building. You've got this shed roof here, and then you put a parapet up on top of it. I think.
Not on the middle of the roof, out at the outer.
Are you out here?
Yes.
Anywhere.
No, we haven't considered that.
One more question. Is it possible to put it into the gable end and come out on top of the roof for your penetrations? Or for your four,
You mean
looks
at-
like 4 penetrations.
At random spots along here.
It looks like there's 4 penetrations by the size of the duct.
I didn't understand the question, Gary.
I think what
He's-
Gary, you're saying,
Run
instead
the
of running the duct
horizontal
here, run it
portion and-
inside and then pop out with a drop.
4 times.
It depends on one.
I'm in another
The
tenant
linear-
space when I do that, which is kind of a problem.
Is it another tenant spot?
The restaurant, the line of the restaurant stops along the structural line, and then there's another tenant in here.
Tip.
Can I ask you what the ceiling height inside right now for the restaurant?
Out here, it is the plate height here is about 8'2", and it slopes back up and maybe hits about 10'6".
And it's an open ceiling,
Yeah.
and you don't like to put the duct inside.
Originally, we were going that way, and I don't have a floor plan. Let me draw it. This is a structural wall here. So the old warehouse basically comes along this line. And this is the high part here. What's happening is we've got these structural beams running along here. So to get the duct, you have to get the duct down like this, and then turn around and up and over. And when you make those turns, you're pretty much below 6'8".
Yeah,
getting around
what
the
I'm
corner.
thinking is the long duct. That's the one that feeds the air to the whole space.
Yeah.
And obviously, you probably need a one place you can penetrate the roof. You can penetrate the roof, then you can go the other way. So that's probably one way looking at it. Instead of go above the roof, you can go below, but you still need one penetration somewhere.
Yeah.
If this came through and then down
And then run.
and then run it inside.
Yeah, we'd end up with kind of a large duct running in here.
Right. If you have an exposed ceiling, which
Correct.
you do, right?
Correct.
So the duct, if 2 feet deep, 2 feet. I'm just wondering because of the style of the building and it's very industrialized, and it seems like the restaurant probably the same way because the exposed ceilings and things like that. You probably have exposed lighting, I assume, on the inside.
Yeah, there's a bunch of different things happening.
So these beams are not periodic. It occurs in one spot?
This is just showing, this is the hood in the kitchen.
Okay. Gotcha.
Kind of more of a section elevation.
The hood.
Oh, it's a hood. Okay.
That's more of looking at it
Okay.
in elevation.
So there isn't structure in the way preventing you from doing the...
It's getting underneath here and coming around that corner and then running in that direction. But I think what Tip's saying
Just drop it at one
is
point.
drop it in here and there, drop it in and run it horizontally along on the inside. And my only concern is when we get to that 90 and that turn, I got to drop into the ceiling and then I got to 90 it and then I got to get back up and run.
Why do you get back up?
Because they never make
Right angles.
these guys never make right angles out of it.
It can't-
They always
it can't-
have to turn it around.
Clay, can't that be done in the kitchen?
it can't.
Fabricate it, you might be able to do something different. Doesn't come down so low.
So there's this beam running across here. That's the steel beam in the kitchen. And what we're trying to do is get around the beams running through here. The drops. The dining room is actually a little bit over here.
So these you can go square.
This is maybe 10, probably close to 10.6. It's probably not quite.
Right, yeah, but that's probably be right along there.
5-store lot.
Right, I'd have to run it right along there, and it would have to drop down and turn a corner, which is the concern. As that duct comes through the roof, it's going to come. If it came in like this, it's going to come down, and then it's going to 90, and then it's going to come back up, and then it's going to run. And
You can go square. You can build square blocks.
Okay, I think we actually...
And
Time out for a second. I think we understand the project. We can ask more questions, but we need to give aesthetic direction on what the board feels is important, and then we can solve as the complexities at another time. So,
where's the extent in this plan, the line of the kitchen? The left.
right about there.
Okay. If there's no other questions, let's go to comments to talk about the aesthetics of the direction of where we want this project to
I'll
go.
start comment. I don't believe that aesthetically that being on top of the rooftop like this on a fairly new project is acceptable, not inside a parapet. And given the size that the applicant has noted that the ductwork is, I believe that there may be solutions for it to go in other locations. And I think the horizontal ductwork at this thing is not very pleasing, and I would look to see other solutions.
Okay.
I
Comments?
I could support the ductwork on the roof over the kitchen area because it's kind of tucked away in the corner of the property. Yes. If it were to only come out of that parapet, behind the parapet, and drop back down into the ceiling. But the horizontal part is not acceptable. The one going out towards that building, that small building, is acceptable though, for the exhaust, the makeup air.
Kirk, do you want to add anything?
Oh, no, I don't have any different comments.
I'll go last. Anybody else want to jump in? You don't have to.
I don't find it acceptable. I would like to see maybe a very, very low, like someone else mentioned, rectangular duct that really was hidden from your eye. But as it stands now, the round is too much, I think.
Yes, I do concur that, and especially about the waterproofing issue of keeping so many penetration down. That's another issue I think you might face.
Yeah. I'll just concur with everybody that aesthetically the exposed duct on the roof isn't going to work just because it's visually seen, even though from your perspective it's not seen very much and it's a warehousey kind of place. It's brand new construction per se. You can build a parapet around this thing and it might change the architecture a little bit, but it will conceal it. And if that's not a direction you want to go, you can build something around this as well to conceal that. So I think there's ways of masking it with more building stuff that makes it more look, more like building than instead of utilitarian. So I can't support the solution from the visual aspect of it.
Would the board entertain the two drop scenario so we can deal with the structural issue and come underneath?
We'll ask the board from the perspective I'm coming from. You can still build a little screen around these penetrations and make it into something, and then yes, that wouldn't be a problem.
Or a chimney or something.
Chimney. There's some kind of foo-foo stuff that you can do to hide, and so then yeah, that would work.
Could you support a rectangular duct if it were lower profile along?
Just announce your name just so we can get that.
My name is Katie Hay. I'm the project developer.
I don't know. I should ask the rest of the board Was it the size of the duct that mattered, or because from the perspective, I mean, I'm looking at it as utilitarian, and it looks like it was a mistake. You know, we should be able to hide these things, or we could build a low-profile parapet around it. Just because it's only sticking up 8 inches versus 30 inches, it still can be screened with something that looks architected.
And even if you
I
went
think
to
an
an
appendage
8
like that would be a big design mistake.
even an 8-inch duct, you're going to have a 4-inch pitch pocket, and then it's going to be 4 inches above the roof line.
You have 2 inches
And
of insulation.
it's still going to be 12 to 14 inches above the roof line.
So I guess the answer is it doesn't seem like that would be a valuable option. So I guess what we can do is thank the consent reviewer for bringing it to full board and tell the applicant to come back with another solution.
Paul, the applicant asked about penetrations. If you were to go inside, would the board be okay with penetrations coming through the building and then down into the roof?
Yeah, sure, definitely. And I will just feel that there's so many options here to do it properly if we want to explore that way. But there are quite a bit of options, in my opinion.
I would think that the screening, I would say that you can do that, but you'd have to screen.
I think that's the wrong way to go, though.
If I may, the approach with this project all along has been to impact the integrity of the building as little as possible, which is why this issue has come about with not taking more aggressive solutions. And that's where this request is coming from, is to try and impact the integrity of the building as little as we possibly can, structurally and aesthetically.
I can just tell you an example. San Marcos High School auditorium has new air conditioners on top of their auditorium, and there's a screen that's around it. The screen's at an angle, and it was put in there 10 years ago, and it was to hide the equipment. And however big your duct is, then that's a finished look from the outside.
I hear you.
Is the roof material metal? So it could match the roof material.
Corrugated.
Yeah,
It could be.
it's core 10.
Any other discussions from anybody else? Then make a motion for indefinite continuance back to the consent for a solution, and unless the applicant wants to go to full board directly. Someone want to make that motion? I'll make it. Okay, someone want to second that motion?
I'll second that.
All right, any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. We'll see you when you're ready.
Okay.
And with that, we will end tonight's meeting before 5 o'clock. Take care.
If there's